Okay, this happened again, and it just befuddles me. That's not even a good word. It makes me angry and it confuses me, and I'm trying to think of a word. Um, Bewilder? I'm trying to think of a word. It's like a WTF kind of thing. I had another video pulled down because of, well, they pull them down and then I appeal and they put them back up because I've been spreading misinformation, allegedly. And you can pull my whole videos down if you want, but I think this is egregious, and it's a sign that we do live in Orwellian times. Although I mean, 40 years ago we just didn't have the technology or the ability to. Um, Now there are just so many sources of misinformation, and I do agree that misinformation is damaging and that something should be done about it. But I'm beginning to realize that the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and there are very negative aspects to every attempt to remedy a situation. For example, I'll give an example. Um, I used to be a Second Amendment absolutist, which I am not anymore, which I think is absurd. But I was one of these people that believed that you should be able to walk into the corner grocery store and walk out with a machine gun. That's a slight exaggeration, but I was one of those idiot people. I finally calmed down. I thought, well, waiting periods might not be a bad idea. And I lived in California, and you had to actually apply for a permit before you could get a handgun. Now, it wasn't really applying for a permit, but you had to get a safety certificate, which means you had to take this test. And even some guy at the gun store, I remember saying, if you can't pass this test, you shouldn't be allowed to be around sharp objects.
This is a reminder. Fart smell okay.
That's wonderful.
This is a reminder. Fart smell okay.
I don't even know how that happened. Well, I do. George Carlin once said, it was back in the 70s, you ever notice that your own farts smell okay? He used to do some really outrageous things, and then he'd explain it. Like once he did a video. If you look on YouTube, it's called "You Have No Rights," and it sounds very fascist. But basically, his premise is if you can take a right away, like they did from the Japanese during World War II, or the abortion issue now, it's not really a right, is it? I mean, these people screaming about their right to own a gun, but they don't want women to be able to control their own bodies. They just think they should be able to run around with an automatic weapon screaming that the Chinese are all communists and should be killed. And, pick your group. Either it's the Palestinians should all be rounded up and killed, or the Jews should all, it's like absolutists are dangerous in the fact that no right can be absolute. That said, studying the subject, sometimes, even of the best intentions, laws can be just pointless. That just like Canada's a good example. In order to ban assault rifles, they started to ban single shot hunting rifles. I mean, this is what happens when people that don't really understand a venue, like politicians, don't even try to make laws just to feel good. Say we did it, like in California. I have to admit, I thought it was probably a good idea. We'll ban guns with pistol grips, or we'll ban guns with flash suppressors, or we'll ban guns with those holdy things in fronts, or cosmetic features. Now, Mini 14, I'll give you another example. Mini 14 is legal in California I think it was is it a 10 round magazine? Now that's not necessarily uh, a bad restriction because who the hell needs 30 rounds unless you're going to do a mass shooting? Now in a lot of European states, there's like a 10 round limit, but if you're a member of a sporting club or you need it for need it. Say you do these run and gun things or these sporting things that gun aficionados or gun people that are really into gun enthusiasts use. And to be fair, most of these people are not dangerous. They're very law abiding. The thing about like Canada and Europe is they vet the law abiding gun owners so much that they're actually the safest people in society because they've gone through all kinds of background checks. I'm not against that. I think that's good. But once you've proven that you're a law-abiding citizen, you're not crazy, you don't do drugs, you don't beat your wife, crazy, law-abiding. Yeah, once you prove that you're one of the good guys, they should let you basically get anything you want. And that's basically like the Czech Republic. They even let you have machine guns. They give you a permit to carry. What they're trying to do is they're trying to vet the crazies. And if you look at these mass shootings, it's people that have all these red flags. They threaten to kill their family. They've been chasing their grandma around with a kitchen knife. They've been hearing voices. They've been committed to mental hospitals. They beat their wife because the transistor radio on their tooth told her that she was a prostitute. I mean, really, really scary stuff. But you don't want to abuse the slightest chance that it might infringe on the right of some beer swilling trailer park loser. You're gonna let every crazy have a gun. That I'm not for. But these little cosmetic things like the gun looks like an AK-47, but something slightly different might be okay. Like in Canada, they have a law that anything that looks like a Kalashnikov or an AR is banned, but there are semi-automatic rifles that take 5 round things that look something like an AR or something like an AK, and they're perfectly legal. Just dumb, dumb, dumb laws. Now the 5 round magazine, I think that's a little infringy. I don't know where you draw the line, but I think 10 rounds should be enough to, if rioters are coming to your house, you should be able to bang, 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 pull your magazine out and stick another 10 round magazine in. It's not that hard. 5 rounds might not do the job. Okay. But 30, attention Walmart, Kmart shoppers, there's some maniac loose who's looking for someone to kill because he doesn't like Mexicans, or he doesn't like Jews, or he doesn't like women, or he just basically doesn't like people and he wants to kill us all. There's got to be some way to vet people like this, like that Anders Breivik character. I think they tightened up the Norwegian gun. I mean, it took him 5 years to get that Mini 14, but he did go to the Czech, and he thought that because someone told him the most liberal gun laws in all of Europe are in Czech. You can get a machine gun, you can get a handgun. He went there and he realized, okay, yeah, you can get those things, but you need a license. And he couldn't get a license, and he tried to go on the black market. This is the thing about laws that are strict but not strict. They vet and check. They want to make sure that you're not a psycho. You have to get a medical. You have to do medical. You have to go to a doctor sometimes to make sure you're not. If your GP says, yeah, he's talking to himself and he's sucking on his thumbs and he's scratching a hole in his head, because that's where the aliens went in. I mean, something just obviously you're nuts. You have to do a medical background. You can't be an alcoholic. You can't even have traffic tickets in Switzerland and own a gun. And they say it's very liberal. But they want to make, because the Swiss are basically Germans, and the Germans are basically into order. If you're not a good Swiss, if you're not a good German, or you're not a good Czech, they don't want you to have a gun. But like 90% of the people that apply can get the permits and the licensing because they're normal Joes. They're just trying to vet the psychos. And here there's no psycho vetting. But what we do is we ban everybody from having certain guns. Not handguns, but semi-automatic, fully automatic. Semi-automatic are legal, but certain semi-automatics are bad. Some countries have been a little more logical. They ban all semi-automatics with a few exceptions, like Australia, since they're a very they have the outback and it's a very wild country. If your business requires you to shoot dangerous vermin like kangaroos or wild boars or rabid koalas or whatever's loose in that country, and there are a lot of dangerous animals there, you can get a license. But it ain't easy, and they just don't hand them out at Walmart. They want to make sure that the crazies don't get them, so they're strict. But you can get them. So my point is, some laws, if the road to hell is paved with good intentions, you can have the best of intentions and still pass a really, really onerous law, even though some sort of regulation is needed. And I think that's what YouTube is doing with this vaccine thing. I would like to make my my position on vaccines very clear. I've been vaccinated 5 times. I believe in science. I believe Anthony Fauci was a saint. There was a lot of trouble during the COVID pandemic. We weren't prepared because that sort of thing only happens once every 100 years, or has. We did. I think people did the best that they could, except Trump. Our nation had a really bad record. We lost a lot of people because there was so much resistance to reasonable restrictions. Uh, the only thing I'm saying is that there was depression. There were I mean, it hurt the economy. Um, it hurt kids' ability to learn because all the schools were locked down. Now, were these necessary evils? Probably. Were the measures we used perfect? No. Did masks stop the spread? Yes. There's a tremendous amount of evidence that if you use the proper sort of mask, a surgical mask, I've got them around here somewhere. There. I think there's one right over there. Can you see it? If you use the proper sort of mask, they were very effective. Vaccines were effective. I did not say anything against science. I'm very pro science. I don't know why I get these bans or these censors. I think maybe AI or something picks up on some word like vaccine or vaccine hoax. I see. That's it. Nobody reviews. Someone will see this. No one will see the video. It'll be just. Um, is there some sort of robot, some AI that's kind of filtering these things? And if certain keywords come in, the vaccines were, especially the American vaccines, were very effective. They saved lives. I'll tell you what I said. I said the counties where people in urban areas where people were vaccinated, the death rate was lower, and the places where people were paranoid and resistant, the death rates were higher. These are facts. How am I being banned for saying that vaccines were safe and effective and masks worked? Now, there were civil liberties issues about people being able to choose, like mandatory vaccinations and the questions about civil liberties. I think those questions were legitimate. But why in God's name am I being banned? Do we want a totalitarian government to just grab people off the streets and staple masks to their face and inject vaccines into them without their consent? I'm not sure that's the proper policy, or that's the proper way to go about this. Now, were vaccines effective? Yes, they were very effective. I vaccinated myself. I tried to isolate myself because I'm fat and I have diabetes and I'm old. So young people, all I said was young people have a much more natural resistance, but people that were young and healthy, they were still vulnerable to COVID. It wasn't like being young and healthy was an automatic immunity. In the natural immunity system, if the natural immunity system was perfect, we wouldn't need the polio vaccine, okay? We wouldn't. I'm pro science. I'm not against it. I do not understand why you're banning me. Why are you banning me? This is crazy. This is crazy stuff. I was trying to do my autobiography and I tend to ramble. That's lost. No, it's not lost. I have it. But you have got to understand. I'm so mad at YouTube. Maybe I shouldn't. I just shouldn't use you. I think a lot of people are really mad at YouTube because you are just so arbitrary and your rules are just so stupid. I didn't say anything against science. I did not say anything against vaccines. What I did say was during the pandemic, there were certain policies that people were against, like closing the schools and mandatory vaccinations. I'm not even saying I'm against it. I'm saying I can understand why people would question that and be upset because they have civil liberties, legitimate civil liberties issues on those issues. Like there are legitimate civil liberties issues when it comes to banning guns. There should be a vetting process. That even Scalia said that. There's no right that's absolute. Licensing and registration of firearms to restrict the access of people that like felons and criminals and crazy people and drug addicts and people beat their wives. There's nothing wrong with those restrictions. In fact, I'm for them. But for people to say that all bans are good. Like we should have laws like in Japan where no one can have a gun, or these silly laws where um, an AR-15 can exist, but you can't, like the SCR Fight Light, where it's basically an AR-15, but it's been neutered, so it doesn't have a flash suppressor on it, and it doesn't have one of those horrible pistol grips. It's missing certain cosmetic aspects, but it still can shoot 10 rounds. It's dumb. I've listened to the other side, and they do have points on certain issues like that. Banning cosmetic features is just completely pointless. There, you can argue about just banning mechanisms like semi-automatic or fully automatic. That has a legitimate debate. You can also say that it's too restrictive, that you should just weed out. A lot of countries allow you to own a handgun or even a fully automatic weapon, but they do have to license, so they weed out the antisocial types, the people that are they have mental problems, or they're a criminal, or they're a psychopath. They have personality disorders. They're addicted to drugs or alcohol. They're just bad. They're just bad eggs, and there are all kinds of red flags, like, yeah, chasing grandma around with a kitchen knife and threatening to burn the house down, uh, stalking your ex-wife. People that do things like that, I'm not even sure they should be out in public with other people. Why? I don't know why we don't do more to protect vulnerable people from really aggressive psychos. It's sad. It's sad that we don't do more. But I mean, should all husbands be be on parole because one guy beat his wife? No, you should go after the bad eggs. Now, that wasn't what I was censored for saying anything about guns. So I'm in the middle. I am pro science. I am pro vaccine. I mean, vaccines save millions of people's lives all over the world. I I didn't like wearing a mask, but I think the people that objected to masks were just being completely and utterly childish. Really, really, I don't want to wear a mask. I don't want to get vaccinated. But do you really want the government putting people in camps because they won't wear masks or because they won't get themselves vaccinated? Or is that just part of the natural selection process that, because Sweden didn't do that. They just isolated old, sick people and took measures to protect the old and the diabetic and the fat, and everybody else was just out running around, because if you were young and healthy, your chances of getting COVID were significantly lower. They weren't zero, though. But please, please, this is just ridiculous that I keep getting my videos taken down for even mention the COVID issue. When you have people like Jimmy Dore, who obviously have found a way to mock things like the vaccines and lockdowns, and although the lockdowns were a little excessive. What did I say? I'm not even. I'm taking the pro science. I think Anthony Fauci was a great guy. I'm not threatening anybody. I'm sticking up for the science people, for the doctors, and they were trying to save people's lives, and the thanks they got was getting death threats. And then you say that I'm being spreading in misinformation. How dare you? How dare you? This is the world we live in. The inmates have taken over the asylum. I'm not saying you're crazy. I'm saying you're being willfully negligent. You're not taking due effort. You're being negligent because you're not making necessary efforts to be prudent about this, and you're abusing people's rights through your negligence. Now, which button do I press?